Let's come to order. Thank you. I'm sorry for the delay in getting started. Welcome. Please silence your cell phones. At this moment, I would ask Representative Ellis to lead us in prayer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Please pray with me. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this wonderful day that you've given us, Lord, and thank you for this ability to come together as a group and make decisions for the state of Alabama. Lord, we just ask for strength, wisdom, and courage to make the decisions that are best for the state of Alabama and those who reside in it. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Clerk, please call the roll.
Chairman Garrett.
Here.
Representative Keel. Here. Representative Drummond. Here. Representative Almond. Here. Representative Baker. Here. Representative Chestnut. Representative Collins. Here. Representative Colvin. Representative Daniels. Representative Ellis. Representative Faulkner. Representative Lawrence. Representative Lovern. Representative Stubbs. Representative Wood. 12 members answering the roll. A quorum is present.
Thank you very much. Representative Baker, you have a guest?
Certainly, Mr. Chairman. Thank you so much. Harrington, if you would stand just for a moment. Harrington Hobbs is a senior at Tierra Miller High School. Very proud to have him painting with us this week. I did get to also introduce yesterday, just reintroduce then Sarah Page Schultz, if you'll stand as well. She's a sophomore at Tierra Miller High School. But anyway, glad to have both of them paging for me this week. Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Welcome. Representative Wood.
Yes, I would like to introduce Jalen Goodwin. I didn't tell her I was going to do this over in the corner. She grew up in my church, and I watched her in the nursery and during Bible school, and now she's working for the Women's Foundation, so I'm so proud of her.
Welcome. Any other guests by members? So we have a very busy agenda today. This may be the strangest committee meeting that I've ever been a part of. We have a packed agenda. We have a public hearing. We also, I want to make a charge to the committee as soon as Representative Faulkner is done with speaking this. I want to make a charge. I'm not being cruel. I'm just trying to, this is important. I want to say that, we have a lot on the agenda. We're moving very, very fast. We just passed the budget yesterday. Thank you very much. I neglected to say yesterday, thank you for your hard work on the getting the budget out of committee. We'll hopefully be on the floor very soon. But we've had some very unusual financial times. We've had a lot of increasing revenue, a lot of money to spend. I've always said you make your worst decisions when you have a lot of money. I think we've not done that. I think we made some really good decisions, and we've saved a lot of our money. Now we're at a point where revenue is flattening. We're seeing the economic situations change. And even though we're in a really good financial situation, it's important that we make good decisions going forward. And so with respect to everything on the bill today, most of these involve tax credits. And I think every tax credit that comes before our committee that I have that's not even on this list are worthy. I think they're noble efforts and noble issues and certainly have merit. But I think at the end of the day, we as a committee are going to have to prioritize what the important tax credits are for us. We have to give some priority to that. We had a grocery tax cut last year. We'll have another one in the future. That's money coming out of the ETF. So I want to make the point, committee, that we've not done this as a practice as a committee, and I want to kind of emphasize it today. We don't want to just move a bill out of committee to get it out of committee. I think we need to really think about it, and some of these bills might need more work, and if they need more work, we need to carry it over and talk about it. We're getting short on days, but we have time still to move good legislation. So I just want to say, don't feel pressured if we're not comfortable. And I may not be comfortable with some of these, but I want you to speak your mind and all of that. But just be mindful of our responsibility to protect the education budget. And so let's be aware of that. Any comments or questions? Anybody want to say amen? Or?
Amen.
Okay,
amen.
Thank you. All right. Clerk, please call the first bill.
House Bill 407 by Representative Pettis.
Representative Pettis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members. Last year, we passed the overtime bill where it exempt anything over 40 hours. Well, under the Fair Labor Standards Acts, I'm going to give you, for instance, firemen. Firemen do not work a 40-hour week. They work 24 on. Some work 24 on, 48 off. Some work 48 on. So they work more than 40 hours. This is a paperwork nightmare for our clerks and all. All this bill does is says the ones that fall under the Fair Labor Standards Acts will be exempt from the paperwork and all.
Representative Faulkner.
Representative Pettis, I appreciate you bringing this bill. This was called to my attention by my municipalities as well, and a paperwork nightmare and trying to keep up with this. So I appreciate you bringing this.
Thank you.
Representative Drummond.
Representative Pettis, I'm not familiar with this, so can you sort of walk me through the type of paperwork and how cumbersome it is for municipalities or others who would fall under this category?
Representative Pettis,
And,
you don't,
if there's an impact to the overall overtime bill, tell me what that is as well.
if you don't mind, I saw Representative Lovern had his hand up to make a comment. He, being a former firefighter, will probably have not better, but more information, different.
Yeah.
Would you mind sharing, Representative Lovern?
Certainly, Mr. Chairman, I'd be happy to touch on some of those. Firefighters and sometimes police officers' schedules is so far different from any other schedule. I used to have to explain to my firefighters why sometimes they would work 13 pay periods but only get 12 paychecks, and how the timing works out with their special legislation that even deals with leave time, even dealing with the whole parts of their retirement. And what this bill would do, Mr. Drummond, is just there's some pretty extensive paperwork that they have to fill out for this. This just exempts them for the paperwork and just clarifies that they're different. They're not a 40-hour work week, and they're not to be applied as a 40-hour work week.
So it's my understanding they're filling out the paperwork even though they're not getting overtime.
That's correct.
Right, and just in full disclosure, there's even some HR departments that have trouble understanding the schedule. It's very complicated, the 24/48 or the 48/96s, and even within our own service, there's so many different combinations beyond the 40-hour work week.
So this request is coming not just from a member, this is coming from a group of people who are in that working field and who are basically saying this is just an exercise we're having to go through that's really we're not even eligible for. So it's
And the League of Municipalities and the ACCA is 100% behind this bill.
Let me, just for my clarification and my lack of knowledge of this process, what if they work, if their hours exceed the 40 hours work week, which in some cases it does, what happens?
Currently, they do not get overtime because, like I said, they're based on 28 days, they can get up to 212 hours before they're eligible for overtime. Just like if they work a 24, like my son's a fireman. He works 24-hour shifts. He's off 48 and he works 24. So he's over his 40 hours. He does not qualify under the overtime under the Fair Labor Standards Act, which is a federal law. They do not get the 40-hour work week. They do not get overtime after 40. Theirs is compensated over the 28-day pay period before they get to overtime.
any other questions? I'll entertain a motion. Representative Lover make a favorable report, second by Representative Faulkner. Is there an amendment? Is there an amendment?
Oh, yes, I forgot. Revenue has, they had a date change. I took it to Karen. I forgot about that.
So it's changing the date from on line 118, page 5, from 2024 to 2025.
That's from the Department of Revenue asked
Right.
us to do that.
So have a motion on the amendment? Representative Faulkner, second. Representative Wood, all in favor say aye. All opposed? So now we have an amendment now, favorable report motion by Representative Lovern, I believe, seconded by Representative Faulkner. As amended. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Bill's given a favorable report. Thank you, sir.
Thank y'all, members.
Please call the next bill.
House Bill 163 by Representative Almond.
Representative Almond, you're recognized.
Okay, good morning, committee, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for allowing me to be here and speak about this very exciting bill. It is my honor to be able to carry the School of Healthcare Sciences bill. This particular bill that we have in front of us today is the Enabling Act. Most of you, probably, hopefully all of us have now heard the governor speak about this school that will be in Demopolis, Alabama. She spoke about it last year in her State of the State, and again this year. This is definitely a priority for our governor. And then so this bill is traveling with the budget because obviously there has to be money to fund the school, and we do have that in the budget. So this particular bill in front of you is simply the enabling legislation to create the school. So let me tell you just a little bit briefly about the school. It will be a high school in Demopolis, Alabama, and will be built on site next to Whitfield Hospital in Demopolis, which is part of the UAB health system. It has a partnership with UAB. UAB has worked closely with Whitfield Hospital and the local Demopolis community to create this whole curriculum for this high school. The purpose of the high school is to train healthcare workers. We have a shortage of healthcare workers in our state, as do many states in our nation, and this is really a direct response to that shortage, trying to figure out how to train and equip more workers in our state to go throughout our communities, particularly with a particular emphasis on the rural communities and trying to train people up in those areas as well. So that's the purpose of the high school. It will be a 4-year high school. When students graduate from there, they can either go straight into the workforce. A very exciting component of this bill is that this group of people that have been working on this for the last couple of years have partnered with over 30 hospitals throughout the state who are willing to have these students come work for them or perform internships, either way they want to go. Of course, the students will be equipped to also go on to 2-year or 4-year colleges as well, if that is their choice. So that's just a general overview of the school. Happy to answer any questions, and I do have one amendment.
Well, thank you for that. I wondered why Representative McCampbell was with us today, but I understand now.
I just love being here.
It's a very important project to him as well. Any questions about the bill? You recall we did pass this as part of in the supplemental appropriation that we moved out of committee yesterday. Representative Daniels?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I know that Representative Allman, that Representative McCampbell and others have been working on this for a couple of years. And question is, would this be the only specialty independent school in a rural community?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, we currently have one in Mobile, one in Birmingham, and one in Huntsville. So this will be a 4th. And the only one in the rural community.
So I applaud the efforts even more because in rural communities, oftentimes they are not afforded the same opportunities and exposure as some of our urban centers has been afforded in previous years. And so I just want to really commend you and Representative McCampbell and others for the vision of making certain that communities that may have been in areas that have been deprived of these opportunities will now be afforded the opportunity to be able to have a specialty school of their own. And I think this is it's a good thing. It's also going to help in our healthcare industry, providing more jobs and pathways for healthcare. And certainly hope that a lot of our schools, medical schools that are in the state, the schools that are in the state will also benefit from a pipeline standpoint with the preparation that's going to prepare these students at the highest level possible. So I just want to commend you on this and look forward to supporting.
Representative Collins?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I also want to thank you, and I also want to thank the entire community. I know when we were meeting with the different groups, cities and counties and chambers, and there were so many groups that had come together to work together, and I think that is what will make something successful in an area. I also wanted to point out something I had not thought of at first, was that I visited the cyber school in Huntsville, and I'm thinking, you think when you travel to a school, you're going to go to a college type setting. You're picturing that age student. Well, what I realized when I got to cyber, it doesn't matter really what's going on around it because they don't get out. They're there to live and work and play, and they try to do things within them because these are high school students. And what I remembered from my previous working days in banking doing training, my people in more rural communities wanted to go to other rural or more rural communities. They were more comfortable. They were comfortable with traffic. They were comfortable with all the different aspects of it. And so I think there are a lot of things in this rural community that people haven't really considered that part. I grew up in a city, Birmingham City. I'm in Decatur City right now. I thought it was a little bitty. I've learned now it's a great big city. But you think about things differently when you're a city person plus that. I also really liked on page 9 that they will extend the elements of the school's curriculum and offerings to other programs across Alabama. I think that makes a difference. I think that's how we take best practices and grow them, and even working into other rural areas. So I commend all the work you've done. Thank you.
Thank you very
Representative
much.
Chestnut.
Finally, the black belt gets a win. We're just thankful for this and thankful for your work on this, and Senator Singleton and you, Ms. Allman. This is going to help tremendously for the black belt because as a lawyer, I do some work within the healthcare sector. I actually represent one of the smaller hospitals in the black belt. And there's always an issue with being able to find qualified personnel within the area because most people, young people, want to live in big cities. And so if you have a training ground that will prepare these young folks to be able to go right in and get their experience in the area, then hopefully we'll be able to keep and retain the talent within the black belt. I mean, we're talking about there are issues in Greene County, there are issues in Sumter County, there are issues in Marengo County, there are issues in Dallas County, trying to find personnel to fill these spots. And so we thank you so much for bringing this bill. And at the appropriate time, I'd like to move for a favorable report.
Any other comments or questions? It is significant, too, that we do have the Bloomberg Foundation grant for $26 million in addition to, so that's a significant investment here as well.
Yes, it is.
So you have an amendment, I believe.
I do. Yes, sir. This was offered to us by the Nursing Home Association, and this is a friendly amendment. Basically, it's 2 pages long. It looks like a lot, but the only actual change is to allow the chief executive officer of the Alabama Nursing Home Association or his or her designee to have a place on the board, and everything else just moves down a number. That's why all that's repeated.
So all the other is just a shifting of the
Shifting
rows.
of the
Okay,
numbers,
I was
that's right.
confused by that.
Yes, I was too.
Okay.
I read it.
Any motion?
So move.
Representative Collins makes a motion to adopt the amendment. Second, Representative Drummond. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? So the amendment is adopted. I'll entertain a motion by Representative Chestnut on the bill as amended. Is there a second? Second, Representative Drummond. All in favor say aye. All opposed? I will say, then the bill's given a favorable report. I will say, just for the committee's benefit, this is an unusual transaction, and there's a foundation involved, and there's some discussion going on about how to address some of the transferability of property issue type things. And so I was just got off the phone with the governor's office, and we are going to probably make an amendment in the on the floor to the bill, but that issue has been resolved. So just I want to make that aware. Any other questions or comments?
I just want to reiterate, I did see you when I walked up here, Representative McCampbell. Thank you for all of your work in leading this effort. And we also have a group from Demopolis here. If you all will stand, they've been working on this for a long, long time. Their community really is, as Ms. Collins said, behind this. They put in a lot of sweat equity, a lot of money themselves. So thank you all for that really grassroots effort. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you, and welcome. Clerk, next bill, please.
House Bill 358 by Representative Daniels.
Representative Daniels, you recognize. And there's a public hearing on this bill. Again, we have a public hearing, so we'll not be taking a vote on this bill today. Representative Daniels.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. This is a bill that we've been talking about for a couple of years now. We know with the Workforce Development Committee that was formed by the Speaker of the House, that was led by Chairman Ingram, as well as the committee, rather, Lieutenant Governor, trying to ensure that the state of Alabama, that we're addressing the issue on the workforce participation rate. And some of the recommendations that came back as a result of those committees convening was around child care. And so this piece of legislation that was introduced last year and reintroduced this year has been supported by a number of organizations, the Women's Foundation, the Business Council of Alabama, as part of the governor's package as well, and many other organizations like Manufacture Alabama and others that have been leading the efforts to look at models around the country that really fit on increasing workforce participation rate. A lot of this particular piece of legislation came from Kentucky, where they're on the move. They've increased their workforce participation rate, increased it after going down this particular road. What this piece of legislation does, and there is a substitute that modifies some of the language from just a refundable tax credit to a non-refundable tax credit that will be in the sub. And so what this will do is provide businesses with the opportunity to be able to receive a tax credit for either building a child care facility on site, as well as providing to their employees or the provider up to $2,000 based upon the rating of the actual child care facility. So the quality at level 5 will be up to $2,000, where it go in the check as a reimbursement for an employee or directly partnership with the provider. And so what this bill will do will allow the women, families that have chosen, that have broken even, to pay child care costs and not have access to child care. What this bill will do will extend the opportunity for child care, access to child care, and the affordability of child care for those families so that we can bring more people back into the workforce.
Thank you, Representative Daniels. Any comments or questions for the sponsor? Yes, sir. This Representative Wood.
Thank you, Representative. I had an opportunity to be a part of Lieutenant Governor's workforce development. And one of the things that are several things that we talked about were barriers to employment for women. And this is a huge barrier. Women cannot go back to work because they can't afford to pay for daycare. And also, they make decisions all the time. Do I go back to work and do I build a life and make a better family? Or do I stay where I am and accept assistance? So we need to break down those ceilings. We need to make sure that we have women that are able to go back to work. It should not be a barrier because you choose to have a family, you can't afford to pay for daycare. We need this. So I appreciate you carried it.
Representative Daniels, you and I had some conversation about this, but my understanding, and we're not voting today, but my understanding was that a lot of the child care credit, that there's a difference in what child care needs among maybe white collar, blue collar communities and workers. And does your bill address the needs that because I think we have needs in both areas here, but particularly I'm concerned that we have a credit that doesn't address both of those groups.
Absolutely, and what it does also for the nonprofit side of it, does talk about the for-profit and nonprofit side. We know that for the nonprofit side, there is no such thing as a refundable tax credit. And so it's all non-refundable tax credits because they don't have it. What this bill does, it does address quality as well as access. And it does not limit or discriminate based upon the area. And so it does address work. And I know you and I had this conversation, and I also spoke with a gentleman, someone from, I think it may have been West Alabama, around this issue. Because blue collar and white collar families do have different needs as it relates to in proximity to a child care facility, as well as those that are passing through. But what we are finding is in many of our rural communities, the larger manufacturers are also asking for the ability to have on-site child care opportunities as a benefit for families to go back in their go back into the checks of those families that choose to put their children in child care. But I think from a state standpoint, we're looking at the quality. I know that many, especially our education chairwoman, we talk a lot about early childhood education and what it does for young people, having them around curriculum early on. And so what this bill will do, it'll solve both of those problems, the quality, the access, and the affordability.
Okay. Representative Drummond.
I wanted to, because I was on the speaker's workforce with Representative Ingram, and this was an issue that was paramount, but he implored us, and I thank him for this, to look at the big picture, because it's not only going to give those women who are currently employed access to child care, but it also will bring more women into those various industries to become employed, because it is an impediment. And I didn't get to go on that tour, but I understand it was discussed on that particular tour. So I think that when we look at this issue, we need to look at the big picture, because when those women become employed, not only are they creating healthy children and being able to work, but they're going to also contribute back to the economy of those respective communities that they will come out of. So I just wanted to say, I think this is so needed. As one of those individuals many moons ago, I was faced with this issue, and it was very, very trying. If I had not had supportive family members, I don't know if I could have done it, not only just with workforce, even with education. And I think that this is something that we need to look at across the board, not only to what we're spending now, but how it will actually increase revenue back to those particular economies. So thank you.
And this is just really a beginning, because there is a cap on this one. And so the chairman insisted that we put a cap on it, which I'm in agreement with, to see how it works. But with all the organization, all the people that are involved in the need to increase the workforce participation rate, both committees actually pointed to that. And so how we arrive at that point, and I know that there are other pieces of legislation that will be introduced that's talking about child care, but one of the things that I would caution us as we look down the road at this particular issue is that there are models out there that's being effective, especially in that have a balance between rural. Kentucky is basically a rural state. And so one of the things that we have to look at is models that are in place and how they're benefiting from this. And then start looking at how we evaluate, do we add to it or do we start making some changes to it? But right now, we have to increase the participation rate. We have to get more people back to work. That also increases the revenue that we're bringing from a budgetary standpoint. And I just want to make certain that I caution us as we look down the road from this.
So I think one thing, again, we're not voting today, but I think between now and the next week, I'd like to have a lot more clarity about some of the questions we're going to hear today about that. But the two pieces of legislation we looked at today, kind of understand those better. There may need to be some work in the weeds on this legislation, so let's talk about it. But one thing I think you brought up and you just mentioned as well, what's kind of moved this to the front of the line has been our poor labor participation rate. So what we need to make sure of is what we do in terms of credit is getting people back into the workforce. It's really not going to help labor participation if all we're doing is providing a credit for people already in the existing workforce. Now, how you balance that's difficult, right? I get it. But the point of this is to try to improve that labor participation rate. So we need to make sure that is what we're putting forth addresses that and does that.
But I also caution us to see that then a person sees that a new group coming in that's benefiting from this and they have children the same age.
That's the balance.
And do they quit their job and then go? So you can't really stop it. You have to make certain that there's no way to prevent anyone from taking advantage of this system. And we can't just make something available for new employees. Otherwise, they'll choose to go to another employer to work. And so we also want to be able to strike a balance to make certain that they're just not moving from one employer to the next just to take advantage of this, and then that hurts the employer that we're trying to help.
That's what I'm saying, and I don't want to, in the meantime, just take money out of the Education Trust Fund to allow all that type to happen. We've got to have it's an intentional program trying to drive an intentional result, and I think we're all supportive of that. We just got to figure out what's the best vehicle to do that, and how do we protect the fund at the same time.
And then we also got to think about small businesses that will want to take advantage of this as well.
Exactly. Representative Collins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I love to get in the weeds on policy. It's one of my favorite things, apparently I do. But I would like to say, I did notice, I think that we've got 25% that's reserved for small businesses and rural areas on page 10.
Yep.
I'd like for us to look at that because to me, that's the areas that are really hurting. I've been saying I served on the governor's attainment committee, and this was one of the number one issues. So that we're talking about it and trying to get in the weeds to find the best way to fix it, I want to commend you. I commend that we're using the QR, the quality rating system, whatever those letters are, and that we're trying to do that. I love that we're moving it towards facilities that are struggling to pay for that. I do and have said for 3 years now, I believe industry and business has to have skin in the game too. It's not just the state paying for a tax credit. I think when we balance that, that helps us a little bit more as well. And I did have questions and all, so I'm glad we're going to get a chance to work on it. I love to get in the weeds and happy to work with you.
So let's move into our public hearing right now again. And I would say to the public hearing folks, let's take just the 2 minutes. But I think if you're here to say basically we don't want the money leaving the education trust fund, we understand that. We've had that several times. So you can say that, make that statement, but you don't have to belabor the point. If someone else also has already made a point for you in support of this bill, you don't have to restate that again. I think we're just trying to look, we've got clearly support, but just be mindful of that time. But we'll allow 2 minutes per speaker. First up would be Camille Bennett, Project Say Something. And you're signed up as neutral.
Hello, my name is Camille Bennett. I'm the founder and executive director of Project Say Something. Part of our mission is to empower Black communities. Within the last 12 years, my husband and I founded and operate 3 child care centers in rural Alabama, which is Florence, Alabama. We are grateful for HB 358. Child care needs all the help that it can get. Child care has historically been underfunded, undervalued, and disproportionately led by Black women in Alabama. Child care facilities who serve our most vulnerable communities are in crisis. We have seen significant increases to the dollar amount and number of parents who now have to pay co-pays for child care subsidy. Our parents are struggling to pay their co-pays because the cost of living has increased. Facilities are in crisis because of staffing. Child care facilities can't pay teachers their living wages. Our teachers are forced to leave the field that they love for retail and fast food jobs that offer better pay. We understand that the child care tax credit bill is more advantageous for large businesses than facilities, mainly because facilities are capped at $5 million per calendar year and $25,000 per facility. This amount does not increase over time. Businesses are capped at $35 million over time, $1 million per year per business year. With the way the bill currently reads, 200 facilities can fully benefit from this tax credit when there are actually over 1,275 child care facilities in Alabama. If businesses received a 50% match versus a dollar for dollar, it could free up dollars to appropriate a line item in the budget that addresses the basic needs of child care.
Time.
Okay. Thank you. Those are good points. I'd like to have those points if you don't mind. Next up would be Ryan Hollingsworth, school superintendent, speaking in opposition.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and committee. Thank you for the opportunity. I do support child care, especially for my grandkids and future grandkids. I'm all about it. But I think you addressed a lot of our concerns in your initial comments, just knowing the fact that the grocery tax, and we've still got that laying out there that when we grow 3.5, it's going to be another 1% cut and so forth. This session, we know what we've done as far as credits that we've already passed. But the alarming thing that I shared with our superintendents on Monday was the March revenue report. And I'm sure you all are very familiar with that. But when you look at that, year to date in the first half of this fiscal year, the first 6 months, with corporate income and individual income and sales tax, we're down $236 million And if that rate continues, then for the year, we're going to be down $472 million, about $500 million, and that's a very significant number. I've got a spreadsheet with about 4.5 pages of various exemptions, tax credits. 11 of those on here do not have a fiscal note at all. So it can't be calculated, or it hasn't been calculated. That's very concerning. I would really like this, for when these bills are considered to the committee, that we have some kind of cap. I know we have estimates. Sometimes those are right, sometimes they're not. If we could have a cap on those, would be great. And then look at having a sunset on all these exemptions and evaluate it like you shared the other day with your storm shelters. There's 5 bills in this committee today that deal with exemptions. I think you covered that earlier. This bill, when fully implemented, would be $45 million to the ETF. So thank you for the time this morning.
Thank you. Betsy Norton with Airbus, speaking of support.
Good morning. My name is Betsy Norton, and I am the Chief of Staff of the Airbus U.S. manufacturing site in Mobile. I speak to you today to offer my support of House Bill 358. Finding childcare for my children has been one of the greatest struggles I've had as a parent. I'd like to share my experience with you so that you can better understand the challenges facing hardworking Alabama families, especially women, who want nothing more than the ability to return to the workplace, to financially contribute to their families, and to continue advancing in their careers after having children, just as Representative Wood noted a moment ago. The first challenge I experienced was finding a daycare program who had availability for my son. The day after I learned I was pregnant, my husband and I started touring daycare centers, and 2 weeks later, our unborn child was on the waiting list at 6 different daycares. And you may laugh and think that I'm silly, but this is actually a common practice among brand new parents in Alabama. Supply is that limited, and the demand for quality daycare is that great. The second challenge I experienced was finding high-quality, accredited daycares in locations that were convenient for my home and my workplace. As a former teacher myself, I believe in the transformational power of education. A high-quality education was, in my experience at least, the launch pad for the success of my career. I wanted to provide my children with the highest quality daycare possible because I so strongly value education. But when the time came for me to select a daycare for my infant son, I faced a heart-wrenching dilemma. Enroll him in a daycare that was highly accredited, or enroll him in a school that we could actually afford. No parent should have to make the mutually exclusive decision. But hardworking parents all over Alabama have to make those impossible choices every day. So what choice did I make? I opted to take on a second job so that my baby could go to the best daycare possible. But even after taking on that second job, by the time that we had our second son, Caleb, there wasn't much room left over in our monthly budget. Ladies and gentlemen, I ask you to support this legislation because it will go far in encouraging Alabama businesses like Airbus to partner with child care providers and nonprofit organizations to increase the supply, the availability, the affordability, and the quality of child care for their employees.
Thank you. Thank you. Whitney Miller with Whitney Miller Nichols with class, speaking in opposition.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to address you today. I'm Whitney Miller Nichols, Director of Governmental Relations for CLASS, the Council for Leaders in Alabama Schools. Our members are school principals and other school system leaders. I'm speaking today in opposition to HB 358. Our Executive Director, Vic Wilson, has shared with you already this session that education is experiencing a death from 1,000 tax cuts. While we understand the need to increase workforce participation, we disagree that that participation should come at the expense of Alabama's public school children. A bill that would offer a tax credit for childcare bakes in an assumption that that would bring more income tax revenue into the ETF. Unfortunately, our schools cannot afford to conjecture. Their payroll and light bill come due every month, regardless of the workforce participation rate in their community. This bill, as introduced, does not target people who aren't participating already. The 4 Education Family Associations shared a letter with you and your colleagues upstairs to express our unified opposition to tax credits and cuts coming out of the ETF. Thank you for your consideration today.
Thank you. Speaking in support, Mariah McKearns, Hope Inspired Ministries.
Good morning. Dear representatives, thank you for allowing me to speak today. I'm Mariah McMeans, a recent graduate of Hope Inspired Ministries, and I'm here to share my story with you. Before Hope Inspired Ministries, I was struggling as a single parent. I worked as a lead sales associate at Dollar General, earning $11 an hour for 30 hours a week, totaling $17,160 a year. But childcare for my 2 children nearly cost $300 a week. With other expenses like my car payment, insurance, and rent, I was left with a deficit of $8,396. It was unsustainable, and I lost my job when I couldn't afford transportation after losing my car. Hope Inspired Ministries changed everything for me, but I must admit I was hesitant to seek help. I talked to them on the phone 3 times before I mustered the courage to enroll. I had to bring my kids with me to enroll in the program. Once I took that step, Hope Inspired Ministries provided transportation, childcare, and job training, all at no charge. This support continued even after graduation until I could save enough money from a few paychecks to regain my own transportation and childcare. Now I'm enrolled in Ambridge University for business administration at no cost and working at Calhoun High School earning $26,000 a year. But even with my progress, I would greatly benefit from a tax bill like HB 358. Many single moms like me are hard workers, but we need a chance to overcome these seemingly impossible odds. This bill would provide vital assistance to families struggling to afford childcare. It would make a significant difference in lives of countless parents and children across Alabama with this support. Families can have a peace of mind knowing their children are in a safe and nurturing environment while they work to build a better future. Please consider supporting HB 358 to give families like mine a fighting chance. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you for sharing. Susan Kennedy, Women's Foundation.
Hey, good morning. Good morning, committee, Mr. Chair. I've come out of retirement to testify on a tax credit, which is odd, I know. Some of you up there have never seen me testify, which is kind of strange considering I was here every committee meeting. But I'll tell you why I'm here today, and that's because I spent almost 2 years working on this bill. And for somebody who has seen every tax credit under the sun and been against most of them, this one is targeted. It answers questions and problems that we actually have, struggles that women are having and families are having getting back to work is a real impediment. There were some questions about blue-collar versus white-collar workers, and I think I want to point you to the part of the bill, I think Ms. Collins identified it, but it's Section 6A that reserves for 6 months the tax credit funds for small businesses, which is defined as 25 employees or less, or fewer, excuse me, rural areas, which is defined in the bill, and also toward the end of Section A, you'll see that employers are not allowed to claim the credit unless they can demonstrate that they have prioritized workers that receive the earned income tax credit, which would be workers that are at the lower ends of the pay scale. So those would be blue-collar workers and, retail, fast food, those kind of workers where businesses are having a real problem getting folks back into the workforce. When I began working on budgets, I think budgets were $4 billion. This year, the substitute you passed yesterday was over $9 billion. We've been very fortunate in Alabama. This is $25 million in the first year, and it does go up over time, but not too much. It's less than 0.2% of the budget. So it also sunsets, and we can take a chance on actually getting some women back to work. Thank you.
Thank you. Delenn Hicks, James Rushton, ELC.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committees. I'm Delenn Hicks, and I work for the children, families, and staff at James Rushton Early Learning Center in Birmingham. It's an area in Woodlawn. Some of you may know this area, that it's kind of a blighted, and we're working to re-energize that. And I'm here to support this bill. Our goal is not only to provide high-quality care to children, but to give parents an opportunity to work, build careers, and provide home environments for young children. In 2007, we started a program in the basement of the YMCA with 20 children because there was a need for infant and toddler care. That need continues to grow. We got a place in Woodlawn in 2017, and we've gradually grown and built out that facility, and we are now at capacity at 108 children. And you go, yeah, you're at capacity. Here's the troubling news. Our wait list is 109 infants and toddlers. I could have a whole other school to fill those up. And who are the people that I serve? The people that walk in and bring their children to me they've got on their Walmart vest, they've got on their scrubs for their tech positions at UAB. I've got a police officer that comes in and drops off her child. I've got a dad that just got his degree at UAB and he's starting an internship in social work. I've got another dad, single dad, that drops his little boy off every day and he goes to work as a maintenance man at the Sheridan. These are the people we serve. 70% of the children in our facility
Finish your thought, though.
come
70%.
from Woodlawn, and 70% are on free and reduced lunch.
Thank you
These
very
are
much.
our children.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Joan Wright, Child Care Resources. You can tell you're in the child care industry because you follow instructions, right? Thank you.
Good morning, Chairman Garrett and members of this committee. Thank you for this time. Again, I'm Joan Wright with Child Care Resources in Birmingham, Alabama. We are a proud partner with James Rushton Early Learning Center through our Early Head Start program that we also have in the community. I've been in the role of serving child care in Central Alabama for almost 20 plus years now, and very proud of the work that we do along partners like Women's Foundation, Manufacture Alabama, and many others who support this work. It is very important work, and it's something that we do need to address. You've heard a lot in favor of this bill today. It will have a diverse impact across this state of Alabama. People like me, who have been a working parent now for 30 years as of today, and I would have benefited from this 30 plus years ago. It is important for the labor force participation, certainly, but it's also important for some of the opposition you've heard today about we don't have enough tax revenue. Where do you get tax revenue? From hardworking people who spend their money. How can they work and spend money if they can't work because they can't go to work because they have children they have to care for, and those children need some place to go that's high quality and affordable? What about the schools? Early childhood education matters. You just heard the example when Representative Wood introduced this young lady over here. She's where she is today because of quality early education. She succeeded in public school, not detracted from public school. That's why we need this bill. The time is right now. You all have this opportunity. Work out the technical difficulties as you see fit, but this bill is important. It's not only an investment in the current workforce, it's an investment in the future workforce. It is an investment that we need to make a priority today, and I encourage you to join me in supporting this bill, get it out of committee as soon as possible, and let it be successful in this legislative session in 2024. Thank you for listening to my remarks.
Thank you. In the interest of time, we have two other speakers who are speaking in support. Unless there's any objection, I would, Karen Johnson with Toyota, please.
Good morning. My name is Karen Johnston. I'm here with Toyota, and thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak in support of this bill. Two statistics really hit home for me. 3.5 million mothers with school-age children lost jobs, took leaves of absence, and exited the workforce altogether during the pandemic, according to a U.S. Census Bureau analysis. And in Alabama, in 2022, nearly 85,000 hardworking families needed access to child care, but had no quality, affordable options in the communities where they live. Access to affordable, quality and reliable care that supports work schedules is essential for working parents, yet it remains the biggest barrier. We have on-site child development centers at a couple of our Toyota facilities in the United States with hopes to expand that here in Alabama and other plants as well. We have seen an increase in team member morale, a decrease in absenteeism, and productivity loss as well. A Ready Nation survey of more than 400 senior business leaders found that 2/3 of employers would expand child care support if state and federal incentives were available to do so. This tax credit really benefits the entire ecosystem and provides an opportunity for businesses and working parents. It will lead to a more robust workforce, thereby stimulating the Alabama economy. Thank you. I appreciate your consideration today.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Representative Daniels, any comments?
I do. I notice, and this is just general to those individuals that are historically opposed to tax credits in general. So when you think about a mother or family choosing to stay home instead of breaking even to child care because they don't have access or their affordability, lack of affordability, think about a mother 22 years old that had to make that choice, or any family in their 20s. And they go back to work and say retirement age and the number of years of service, 25 to 30 years. Well, the child care for one child, that's 3 to 4 years of child care versus 20-something years without having the need for child care reimbursement in their checks. So what I'm getting at is that the individuals that oppose tax credits have to think about the long-term tax revenue generation. If I'm working 25 years without actually having a tax credit being given to me by my employer, then all of that tax revenue goes back into the very fund that you're trying to protect. So this is a way to generate revenue for the Education Trust Fund long term. So let's not be short-sighted here. Let's look at the big picture. And right now we're looking at, and we're taught and we're trained to oppose anything that impacts revenue, but nothing that generates revenue. This is a revenue generator more than anything taken away. So I think we gotta stop being so short-sighted and look at the long-term play, not today, but tomorrow. And for the future of our state and our country, and for kids to be able to educate, there's nothing that you can equate to having a child being educated very early on, and really helps the public school system. If a child has gone to daycare or child care from the age of from birth to pre-K, that helps them with their productivity as a kindergartner. They are school age ready. It reduces our burden on intervention programs long term. So let's stop being short-sighted and look at how this benefits us from a quality standpoint and a revenue generating standpoint. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. This concludes our public hearing. We will not be taking a vote today, but we'll be continuing to work on this legislation. Clerk, please call the next bill.
House Bill 381 by Representative Ingram.
Good morning, Chairman. Good morning, committee. We took, I chair the labor force shortage, and this is an element that we have found in this committee, that child care is a need. And so we looked at how we could do it in a good steward's way to where we could measure success and be able to be partners with manufacturing and with employers throughout the state. In this bill, we've worked on it. We looked at what other states are doing. We looked at what other states are having success. We looked at what we could do. Every state is different, but what we could do different, because we need to generate jobs, and we also need to take care of child care and our people and getting them back to work. But in that, if we have no measure to success of what we're doing and how we're growing, then we don't need to just give money away and throw money at it. If you take out your phone and calculate this, on on $15 million and you divide that by an average of $20,000 a year, you're able to help 1,500. On $25 million and you calculate the whole thing, you're able to help 1,250. That doesn't take the $2,000 element out that's already in child care. But what difference is, and I appreciate Representative Daniels, he's brought some legislation that's going to fix it, but this is just taking care and being able to measure what I've got and being able to help more employees out there and being able to measure our success. So it's a pay to play, mine is. So if you hire 25 employees, in 24 and 25, you'll get so many credits. You'll get 25 credits that you can use to be able to use for the deduction for the next year. This has got a 3-year guardrail, so it sunsets in 3 years. We can change it, we can renew it, but it's a lot of things that we've passed, even the overtime bill, has handicapped some manufacturers for hiring new employees because they're taking those existing employees and working them more hours and they don't have to pay for deductions. And that cost us twice as much as what we thought it would do. This right here, it's a pay to play. We can measure the success and we've got money coming in. It's good for the education budget. It's a maximum of $15,000 period. We cannot go over it, we cannot exceed it, and we cannot grow it. But we know how it's going to grow every year and where we're at. And that way revenue can tell that employer that you earned 11 credits this year or 50 credits or whatever the credits. And it's also got 25% of it going to the rural area. We've also found in that committee that the on-site child care has helped the white collar but not helped the blue collar. And we want to help the blue collar workers and the lower income, the ones that are that are working hard and sometimes working 2 jobs. I'll be glad to answer any questions. You've got the bill in front of you. Like I say, it's a pay to play.
Thank you. Representative Keel.
I've got a question about your definition of rural area. Would you help define rural area for me?
Yeah, let's see if I can find this in here.
It's line 123 on page 5.
Okay. So it's, let me find it in the bill. I had it on my cheat sheet, but it doesn't say any more than you've already known. What line was it?
Line 123.
We took this language from another state. I don't remember exactly what state it was, but so it's not boundaries inside of a municipality or a city or larger municipality than that population. It's less than 25,000. Let's say Perry County would qualify more. Most of your black belt areas would qualify.
This says in excess of 25,000.
In excess, so it wouldn't be in excess of 25. It'd be less than. Is that the way you're reading it? That's the way I'm reading it.
Thank you. Do you have a question, Representative Drummond? Do you have a question?
I have lots of questions.
Yes, ma'am.
So you said that this is pay to play?
Yes, ma'am. So this would help more employees. It'd help the employer to help more employees with the 50% match instead of 100%. So it's, and also you earn the credit. So if you have, let's say Alabama Power's got 6,100 employees, they could grab most of that money right at, some of your bigger employees could. This one, it gives limits on it. So if you have 6,100 employees and you hire 10, then you get 10 credits. We hear from manufacturing, we hear from all the business throughout the state, when we've traveled this state, this committee has, that we need to hire employees. Well, don't tell me that you need to hire employees, show me. We're gonna help you. If you hire more, that tool is in your toolbox to do it. It's not gonna cost the state any money. It's gonna be partnership when you do hire. And when you hire those employees, you can use it on an employee that's existing. That keeps them from jumping ship. You can use it on a new employee. You can use it on any employee you want to use it on. You can use it on an employee that's been there for 20 years, or you can use it on that employee you just hired.
I guess I'm sitting here and I've read part of the bill, and maybe there needs to be a little bit more clarification for me. How is that going to make that employer or attract more workers to that employer's business. I'm looking
So they'll be able to pay it next year.
Let me just finish for a moment. The previous bill, I think, would actually, it's a big picture, and I think it will attract more women into the workforce, those that perhaps could not work because of the cause of the impediment of having not only access, but also quality child care. And I'm trying to reason with your bill. Are we looking at just existing employees?
You can do it on existing, or you can do it
grow?
on new employees, either one.
For employees.
Right. So, but you have to turn and earn. It's a partnership. We can't just give money away without showing some measure of success, you know, and with that measure of success in 3 years, we can grow it to 25, we can grow it to 30, we can grow it to 50, long as we see a measure from this committee. But with this other bill, Anthony does a great job, don't get me wrong, and he's on that committee. And this is something that was worked on last year. But we took that idea, it started with Manufacture Alabama, actually. We took that idea to build on it so we can help more employees, help the employer with more employees. Because if you take that 15 million like it was last year, and then you multiply it by or divide it by the 20, you're only helping 1,250 employees. This way, you're helping more employees, and you can recruit more, and we can measure the success. And it also takes care of the blue collar, and it also takes care of the state with being able to have, you know, some measure on it.
Okay, I think with this bill and the previous bill, both relate to child care. We want to kind of sort that out, so we'll carry this one over with that one, have discussion between now and then. Okay. Clerk, please call the next bill.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you.
House Bill 346 by Representative Almond.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee. I am here to introduce House Bill 346, which is workforce housing, a workforce housing bill. It also is part of the Working for Alabama package, similar to the child care tax credit bill that we just heard about. Well, I applaud the efforts of Representative Ingram and Ms. Wood and all those of you who've been working over the last year on trying to get our labor participation rate up, and that's what this bill intends to do. And it really is addressing the affordable housing piece of that. I've been working on this bill for a couple of years, and it's really got a broad coalition of interested parties, Alabama Realtors Association, major banks, affordable housing advocates, all are on board with this bill and have been supportive of it. So in general, this bill creates a state workforce housing tax credit to complement an existing federal program that was really initiated before Representative Colvin was born, probably, during the Reagan administration, designed to incentivize private capital investment in the development of quality, affordable workforce housing. We're all jealous, Representative Colvin. 29 other states have already enacted a similar state tax credit. The purpose of the credit and the program is to drive down the cost of living so that it makes financial sense for someone to enter the workforce. And I'll give you two examples. One example would be maybe in these high growth areas we have in the Huntsville area or the Mobile area where we have lots of industrial type jobs coming online, not enough workers to put into the workforce there, and they're trying to recruit from other areas. A lot of these people are coming from more rural areas where housing costs are lower. They cannot afford to move to Huntsville or Mobile. We're talking multifamily housing here. We're not talking Section 8, that you have to have a job to live in this housing, but it is rental housing. And so this is subsidized rental housing. So it would incentivize someone to move to an area where there is a high demand for jobs. A second example would be a mother who is in Section 8 housing, who has 3 children, and she's ready to go back to work, but she goes back and gets the job, she's likely to lose her Section 8 housing because she makes too much money. So she faces the choice of either not getting that job and staying where she is and having housing, or going to get a job, but where does she move to? She can't afford to go and buy her own house. This is really sort of an in-between for that person to be able to go and afford to live somewhere that's a nice place to live. So those are two examples of how this bill would help bring people into the workforce and really directly impact what we're trying to get at here. When we first introduced this bill last year, we were asking for a $20 million, I believe it was, tax credit. We've reduced this to $5 million, greatly scaled it back. We believe it will work. It works in other states, and so we scaled it back just to hopefully get it going and get some of these projects online, and let's see how they work. And we also have it sunsetting in 3 years. If I could press the replay button on Lawyer Daniel's closing argument a minute ago, I would do that and remind you that for every $1 that we will invest in this program, it is predicted that we will get $7.30 back in economic activity. So while it is a tax cut, we are actually putting people back on the payrolls, and we are generating economic activity. Nobody gets a tax credit until the project is built, put in place, and we have people living there. Then they can apply for the tax credit. And the final thing I'll say before any questions is this will all be run by the Alabama Housing Finance Authority that exists already and already handles all of these types of federal tax credit programs. So there's no extra layer of bureaucracy there. I'll stop there. There is an amendment from the Department of Revenue that we'll need to introduce as well.
Okay, what is your amendment?
This is from the Department of Revenue, and it was some technical changes they had, and I believe Mr. Ellis is going to present it.
Representative Ellis, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And when Representative Faulkner left, I got a little nervous because he handed me this amendment and said it was a friendly amendment, and I thought, well, that son of a gun has lied and left the room to me. But so I'm glad to hear you mention. But it is a Department of Revenue amendment. Would you like me to go through?
Please.
And you do have a copy of that amendment. Instead of reading it, I'll just tell you kind of basically what it outlines, what it does. On line 35, it's a technical update to reference the correct code section. Line 143 ensures the Department of Revenue and Department of Insurance are provided a copy of the eligibility certificate. Lines 149 through 153 removes the requirement to be first credit applied. Then lines 184 through 196 adds the Department of Insurance for insurance premium taxes, allows the Department of Revenue to accept eligibility certificates through current process available in My Alabama Taxes. And then finally, line 231 and 270, it adds the Department of Insurance. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll move that we adopt these amendments.
Technical amendment of the Revenue Department offered by Representative Ellis. Is there a second? All in favor say aye. All opposed. Amendment's adopted. Now, any questions? I will make a comment. Initially, of course, the housing credit and the child care tax credit were both identified as priorities from the Lieutenant Governor's 21st Century Task Force. The same with the governor's package bills that we're looking at. Initially, this number was at a higher amount. I believe it was $15 million, and you've reduced it to $5 million. This is a program that's a federal program that's in existence today. We don't have a state match or state opportunity here. And so this would be basically allowing, the thought is that even a credit of $5 million would be effective or impactful because there are people utilizing that credit today in Alabama but only get the federal benefits, so they're not doing as much business in Alabama as what your thinking is.
That is correct.
Any comments or questions from any members? Yes, Representative Collins.
I'm not aware. What is that match? I've been hearing about that too. So this $5 million investment from the state, what federal money would that potentially bring down for the state? Do you know that?
There are two different, this is starting to get over my pay grade here, but there are two different types of federal housing tax programs. One is they call the 9% program, which, as I understand it, we draw that down every year and are oversubscribed to that. That is the kind of program that works every day in Alabama without any tax credits having to kick in to make it work. It works in Alabama. The 4% program is what it will draw down from. And the reason it doesn't work in Alabama when we have to provide the tax credits is that our rents are so low, the math doesn't work. And so there are many other states that also provide these same tax credits in order to make the math work so that we can draw down these federal dollars. Otherwise, we're leaving money on the table every year.
That was how I understood it, that we were leaving, but I didn't know quite how it works. So this would somehow kind of supplement maybe some of that rent that is below.
It would incentivize the developer to do the project. It would incentivize behavior that's not happening today.
Thank you.
Representative Wood.
I think housing is a very big barrier for people. I've spent the last 30 years in the real estate field, and I can tell you that my phone rings constantly. People just wanting somewhere to rent, somewhere to live. So it's important that we do that. But I think it's also important when we offer these tax incentives and these tax credits that we watch those people when they come back and they try to get us to lower their taxes based upon the rent, which is the income approach, instead of what it costs them to build it. Because we've already given them the incentives. They don't need double incentives. And that's happening in a lot of communities, and they're frustrated by it. So I think there's some pushback from individuals because of that. When we give them incentives, they need to be like everyone else and pay their fair share when it comes to their ad valorem taxes. So that's something I did want to go on record and say, because I think that's extremely important as we move forward. They shouldn't get double. They shouldn't get both.
Timely comment. So noted.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Representative Drummond. Movement for a favorable report as amended by Representative Drummond, second by Representative Lovern. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Bill's given a favorable report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you,
Clerk,
Committee.
please call the next bill.
House Bill 257 by Representative Lovern.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'm excited to be here with you today to discuss a bill we've been working on for about a year now, and that's the Alabama Adventure Awaits. And those of you reviewed a little bit of it last week. For some of those that may have not been here, what this would do is create a sales tax holiday dealing with outdoor items to try to motivate the people of our state to invest in items that would inspire them to enjoy the great natural resources we have to enjoy and recreational activities we have in this state. I'm going to have an amendment shortly that would reduce this down to, on the original bill, reduce it down to a single day, a Friday in May. And after discussion and many things, we've made some other adjustments in the bill, and to try to open it up to where it fulfills the need of what we're trying to do to inspire people to enjoy our state and to try to restore some of the soft skills and very important aspects of just being out in the sunshine and enjoying our state. So with that, have any questions? And also do have an amendment that I think Representative Allman wanted to bring.
Okay. Do we have the new fiscal note? What is the latest fiscal?
Sure. Yes, sir. We've drafted a preliminary fiscal note, and if the amendment is adopted today, it would essentially, the numbers that you have in front of you on the introduced fiscal note, it would half of those amounts in that table there. That would be the effective change.
So the 28.5 million would be in half?
Yes, sir. That's correct. Okay. And just to note, the provision immediately after the table does contemplate additional possible reductions based on things that we couldn't quantify So that kind of provision is still there, but what we were able to quantify is captured in the table.
So it's basically a $15 million fiscal note after the amendment.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Representative Almond, you have an amendment?
Yes, sir, I do. Basically, what this amendment does is on page 3 of the bill, starting around line 65, it basically removes powered watercraft from the bill and replaces it with non-powered watercraft. Mr. Levern, is that correct?
That's correct. You may have two amendments on your desk. This is the one at the top left. It's TIUK 919-1.
Okay.
And just to make sure that's clear, and like Representative Almond said, just dealing with feedback with the amount of, we want to also inspire our retailers to have the opportunity to have outdoor shows that may bring people in. That's boating, outdoor recreation, ATV shows, fishing shows, hunting shows. This leaves all those items in there pertaining to those categories. It just removes powered boats. I know several of you were uncomfortable with that component, and that dramatically decreases the fiscal note that could be out there. And so these boat shows, for instance, could go on, and just note that on that day, only the items that go along with that purchase of a boat would be there, not the purchase of the actual boat that may be in stock. So that change is in there, and then the amendment, like I stated, would change it down to that first Friday in May of each year, and that's the only changes per the amendment.
Okay, so you have one amendment now.
Correct.
Right, okay. So Representative Almond has offered the amendment. Second by Representative Drummond. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, so we have the amendment adopted. Is there a motion on the bill? Representative Faulkner.
So, Representative Lovern, so this is, I was looking at both amendments, and I think that was what was confusing me. The first amendment that we had in our packet is not being introduced, is obsolete by the second amendment.
You could just discard the First Amendment.
Okay.
And just down to this one instrument, like I said, begins with a T in the top left.
And so there'll be one sales tax day.
Correct.
Under your bill, and non-powered watercraft.
Correct.
And did we confirm that pickleball and that equipment paddles are included?
It would be included. I meant a pictured poster to put up, so that would really help you. That wouldn't involve much reading, and so you could kind of see those products and items that would be included. But people that aren't quite the outdoorsmen like you are, that maybe do sport.
Well, I was asking for Representative Ellis and Lawrence.
Sure. Certainly.
All right, any other comments or questions about the bill? Is there a motion?
So move.
Offered by Representative Daniel as bill's amended, seconded by Representative Faulkner. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Bill's given favorable report. Thank you. Clerk, please call the next bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee.
House Bill 258 by Representative England.
So move.
Second. Thank you for the recognition. This is House Bill 258. We had a public hearing on it last week. It is the companion bill to Representative Lovern's Alabama Venture Awaits bill. And as we discussed last week, it increases the SSUT tax to the state average, which would be about 9.3%. And it comes up with a distribution formula for the new revenue. There was a formula that was presented in the last bill that was about 80-20 between counties and cities, but there has been significant negotiations and discussions between the education community and between this bill, and Representative Lovern's got an amendment that will change that formula a little bit to include some money going to local county and city school boards as well. So I'm here to answer any questions.
So again, just for the benefit of members, this money is not going to impact either the education budget. It really is money that all goes to locally. The Representative Lover's bill we just passed, that credit would come out of the education budget, but this would not. But this is basically would allow for, Representative Lover, you can explain your amendment, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Mr. England, for your work to bring these communities together. Like you stated, we're moving HB 257 along with it. We're creating a hole. We're trying to plug a hole in a bucket. It may not be directly through the ETF, but it is going to try to make whole a little bit of where we created a hole with the sales tax holiday through the adjustment to the SSUT, and not only the adjustment there, but also fair alignment, like we stated last week, with our brick and mortar stores. So we're giving a disadvantage to our local folks that are investing in our community, and we're giving an advantage to the people online. So appreciate your work with that. After much communication with the cities, the Big Ten, the counties, all the education community, we got around the table to try to figure out what would work best for everyone involved, and we've got an amendment that would take it for just the new funds generated in the SSUT, 65% to each municipality in the state. 65% of that would be, with that breakdown, would go 65 to the larger cities of over 50,000, 35 to the under 35, so it makes that disparity in population more fairly aligned. 15% to each county in the state, and then 20% to the Department of Education to be distributed to each county or municipal school board on a prorated basis according to the average daily membership of the preceding academic year. So with that, I'd offer that amendment.
Is there a second to the amendment? Question, Representative Drummond.
Representative Lovell, is it only for new funding in the SSUT tax? So it's just in any growth if it continues to increase, correct?
Yes, ma'am. That would only be for the amount included in the increase above the 8%. So we're talking about just those funding items.
1.3%.
Yeah, thank you, and also thank you for including education.
Representative Faulkner.
Representative England or Representative Lovern, I was looking at the amendment and just wondering at the breakdown of the 65%, 35% for municipalities with populations of less than 50. I certainly, represent municipalities with less than 50, and I was just wanting an explanation on the 65%, 35% breakup there.
Certainly, that was agreed upon between the cities of those size and the larger cities. We looked at several different options with the locations generated of where these purchases are. This agreement amongst those two groups, they're both happy with, because it helps with a little bit of disparity because of the larger population of our bigger cities, potentially making bigger orders, and more of that revenue actually is there. So a little more of that money would go there because that's where the people are.
Okay. So I heard you say that all cities have come to an agreement on this, including the ones less than 50,000.
Well, I wouldn't say all city, but the League of Municipalities has been involved, and the people from the Big Ten mayors have been involved in those negotiations. So an individual city may not be okay with that, but the groups that represent them in Montgomery in that discussion,
the league
have come to this agreement.
Okay.
Any questions on the amendment?
And if I'm misstating that, anyone can certainly chime in. But that was in the discussions and where it was presented to me.
Representative Collins.
And this may be for revenue and not you, but of this new policy, I know Morgan County has a local bill that we divide ours out. How would that affect this increase in that county?
If I'm not mistaken, the new formula would take this new money and distribute it to each local county school board on a per pupil basis. So I don't think it would actually.
Because it only deals with the overage, so everything would stay the same, except for the cities, the counties, and the school boards would get a percentage of this overage.
Right.
but it wouldn't affect our local
No.
change at all.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Representative Stubbs.
I'd just like to add, I think the simplified seller use tax, obviously, as a former chairman of a county commission, Elmore County, we voluntarily give 25% of the amount that we receive to the Board of Education. We did not do that by local legislation. We just did that by agreement. And I think there are 15 counties in the state that do that currently.
Right.
And I would hope that those counties who are voluntarily participating will not view this as an out to get out of the agreement that they were already in. I hope that they will continue to do that, because I can say that in Elmore County, because we started doing that about 3 or 4 years ago, we've seen our relationship with the Board of Education and cooperating projects, working together. It has improved tremendously and allowed us to do projects. We built pickleball courts for Representative Faulkner in Elmore County, using some of those types of funds for our schools. So I just hope that this doesn't preclude or encourage them to step away from the agreements they've already made.
And a great point. I actually would like to take you across the state, because not only do current agreements need to be respected, but new agreements need to be made, quite honestly. And, all over the state, there are some counties, municipalities, particularly counties with very low property tax millage rates, that this new funding could be very vital for. But at the same time, county commissions and city councils, for that matter, that are getting SSUT money also need to explore using that money instead of attempting to raise taxes. So with that, like I said, we can get a T-shirt, go across the state, and start encouraging local governments to take this SSUT money and use it to supplement what county schools don't have. And currently, as you know, more local county boards are taking on costs that they were never intended to in the first place. Transportation, paying for protection, paying for nurses and counselors and so forth. And the costs continue to rise, but the money doesn't. So,
And the best part is they get the money and they're not told how to spend it. They actually get some ability to identify specific needs and spend that money on that, rather than being directed as to what to spend it on.
Yeah, so this is not the end, this is the beginning.
Thank you. We have an amendment off of Representative Lovern. Is there a second? Second, Representative Faulkner. All in favor say aye. All opposed. Amendment's adopted. Now entertain a motion on the bill. Oh, Representative Hill, you had a comment, question?
Representative England, when you first made your introductory comments, you said that this was a companion bill to Representative Lovern's bill. Can you tell me in what way this is a companion to that bill?
Well, you know how we try to do things around here. We take away, we try to give. So if we increase the tax on one side, or we offer a benefit on one side, we try to come up with money to help offset the cost. So this is just a way to indirectly offset some of the costs associated with the tax holiday that Representative Lovern's bill creates.
So we're in the ETF committee now. So you saying this offsets the hit that the ETF will take on Representative Lovern's? Because I don't see it as a companion. I think Representative Lovern's bill will be a direct impact on the ETF, while this will not backfill that. Am I missing something there?
Representative Lovern.
Thank you, Representative Keel. When I said at the beginning, what we're working is to try to create a replacement in a bucket. It might not be a direct replacement, but it's going back into the education bucket. And that use that term broad to say it may not be directly back to the ETF, but it is going to areas that money is directed from the ETF. It's just going direct to the locals with the way that we've got it set up. And so that's where we worked with the education community to try to involve them in some way. That was the easiest setup to do that as well. So when you say it's a companion, it's related. I'm trying not to move forward with taking money potentially away without finding a way to
if not directly, somewhat indirectly, get money back in that direction. So it's not a direct replacement, but it is a movement back into that broader bucket of education, if that helps.
Okay.
It's the perspective.
And could you also tell me how you got the percentage that you're attempting to raise it to, how you came to that number?
Yeah, it's just an average. Some are 10, some will go up to 10, some are at 8, some are just a little bit above 8. So it's just an average across the state, which ended up on 9.
So if the cities do that again, or the counties, if they raise taxes again locally, will that encourage us to come back with another bill and raise this again? Is that an incentive?
So this is
for us to
actually
do that?
a different tax from those. This is the SSUT, which was created by us. It's a different bucket of money with a different distribution formula. So if the cities or counties decide on whatever legal means they have to raise taxes to do on their own, it wouldn't really have anything to do with the SSUT because it's a completely different.
So why are we raising this?
Because the SSUT is 8%, and the rest of if you buy something online, it's 8%. But if you go to the store, depending on where you are, the tax is higher. So we've actually encouraged and incentivized people not to visit stores in your district anymore because they can pay less by not. So when you equalize that playing field, the hope would be to encourage people to go back into your brick and mortars. So it helps you two ways. A, you have people actually visiting your stores, which helps businesses there. But when they go into the stores, they actually pay more in taxes. So
I own one of those stores, so I'm very familiar with what you're talking about.
Yeah,
My question is, though, does it incentivize the town to raise tax again, and they'll be just above it again? I mean, it's not the retailer's fault that the local city or county has a higher tax rate than the SSUT.
It's actually the legislature's fault because we created the law with a lower threshold. So to encourage people when they didn't have to pay to actually collect that tax. But now since the Supreme Court has given us the Wayfair decision, which allows us to assess a use tax, the difference in what you can pay in a brick and mortar versus what you can pay online is actually having an impact on businesses like yours where people are encouraged not to go. So when we equalize that playing field, we hope people will go back to the stores.
So do we have I can't remember, do we have Representative Wood?
I wanted to make a comment because I will say this. This made me pause when I saw the original estimate, which was 28 million. So I just want to give you something to chew on here. I went to our chairman about maternity leave. We could offer 6 weeks paid maternity leave to every educator, male and female, for $28 million. For $14 million, we could offer 3 weeks. I know we're given a tax break, but we're the education committee. You know, I mean, we could really do something to impact our teachers across the state. And we're not even talking about that. We're talking about allowing people to come in and purchase items that make them happy. I'm not saying that's a bad thing because I like those things too. But it just makes me pause when I see these huge numbers and wonder what we're doing to impact the people that are teaching and are in these classrooms every day with our kids. I just needed to say that, just for myself. Thank you.
Do we have a motion?
So move.
Motion by Representative Daniels on the bill as amended. Second, Representative Chestnut. All in favor, say aye. All opposed?
Mr. Chairman,
Clerk, please call the roll.
Second amendment.
Oh, there's 2 amendments? No, this. Yeah,
Oh, it took
those. Yeah. Clerk, please call the roll.
Chairman Garrett.
Aye.
Representative Keel.
No.
Representative Drummond. Aye. Representative Almond. Representative Baker. Representative Chestnut.
Aye.
Representative Collins. Aye. Representative Colvin. Representative Daniel.
Aye.
Representative Ellis. Representative Faulkner. Representative Lawrence. Representative Lovern.
Aye.
Representative Stubbs, Representative Wood,
No.
6 yeas, 2 nays.
The bill's given favor report. Thank you. We have one more bill. Do y'all have it in you? One more. Representative, caught the last bill.
Sorry, thank you, members. And
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
House Bill 124 by Representative Crawford.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee. I have one observation. As I was looking at the pictures, y'all let Rick's, Narita Ingram put his high school picture in there. But at least we know what he looked like before Elliott ran over him at the softball game at home plate. This bill deals with livestock producers. It is an exemption for the sales tax for common fencing materials like barbed wire, posts, and gates and things like that. This is a bill that would help some of our producers in all the input cost increases that we've had so much in the last few years on the price of steel and wire and things like that. And I do have an amendment.
Okay, would you like to offer your amendment, please?
The amendment has 3 parts to it. It has an affidavit that is required at the retail store where the farmer would fill out affidavit that he is a legitimate livestock farmer to get the tax break. That way, when our politicians buy T-posts for their signs, they'll have to pay full price and taxes. The other one is a sunset. It's a 5-year sunset on the taxation that was requested, and then a $25,000 gross sales amendment. Anything that occurs over that is not exemption. So that does a few thousand feet of fencing a year for a producer.
Is this the same amendment that was adopted by the Senate?
Yes.
Okay, so the Senate's passed this same bill with this amendment?
Yes.
Any comments on the amendment? Entertain a motion?
Motion move.
Motion for the amendment by Representative Lovern. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Representative Chestnuts. The bill's been amended. Any motion on the bill?
Motion to give a bill favor report.
Motion by Representative Daniels, second Representative Lovern. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Bill's given favor report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you for being here
Appreciate
for being here the whole endurance test. I'm sorry.
No problem.
The
Thank
committee, a lot of left for other committees. Want to thank you for your diligence, your endurance. We did just what we're supposed to do, and we've been burning days, so we're kind of short end. We got a lot to cover, but appreciate your help. Thank you. We're adjourned.